Hello, guys. This is Healing Disclosures with Nicole. I am Nicole. I am your host. Today is August 7th, Sunday. I just wanted to go over some things that keep coming up. People do keep questioning, what is the Schumann Resonance? I share a lot of the images that kind of get broadcasted multiple times a day about the levels of the Schumann Resonance. And some people will comment on that shared image. What does this really mean? Like, I see the big white shower of energy, but what does that mean for us? So I kind of started looking into it because on the surface, it means one thing. Obviously, it's a elevation of frequency that's directed at Earth, to Earth. But I think that it really ties into kind of what we're all experiencing. We have effects of ascension symptoms. Most of us have some effect, whether it be ringing in the ears, headache, fatigue, muscle aches and pains, nausea, dizziness. I know several months ago around May, I had been dizzy quite a few weeks prior to. I went on vacation to the beach first week in May, and I was so dizzy. I mean, I literally fell down a couple times. I fell down in the condo. I fell down on the beach. I had zero alcohol on board, so that was not it. I just really was dizzy, and I was like, gosh, this ascension symptoms are kicking my butt. But as time's gone on for me, it's gotten better. Every now and again on the really significant days, I do still have some symptoms, and I think everybody will, until we kind of graduate. So, but for me also, I've been reading along with lots of people, the Sophia Code on Esoteric Atlanta with Brice. She introduced me to a lot of the books about the Magdalene. And then as we were reading a different book, Magdalene is one of Brice's main spirit guides. And she told her that we need also, as a collective, needed to read the Sophia Code in conjunction with this other book. And so once we started it, it really touched me, and it's an amazing book, and I recommend it to anyone. I do know I have some followers that are already reading it. The Sophia Code is a living transmission from the Sophia Dragon tribe, and it goes through the sacred DNA, the activation of that DNA. There's 8 activations from the Ascendant Masters in this book. So when you go through, it's actually a working book where you will read through and perform activations for your own DNA. So as I was thinking about the Schumann Resonance, we get out in the sun, get grounded. That'll help with the ascension symptoms. That'll help your DNA. You have some exposure to the sun. It's good for you. Don't believe what they say. Get out there, take your shoes off, put your foot on whatever ground you have access to, and 10 or 15 minutes as a day, as many days as you can. That grounding will help you absorb, and the DNA to absorb and have some activation of your latent DNA that is within all of us. So I just kind of want to go over some of that, and hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have a little bit better understanding and see kind of how I've connected some dots there. The Sophia Code awakens cellular soul memories of countless lifetimes as embodied ambassadors of the Sophia consciousness on our planet. No matter what your conscious memory can recall, your DNA has stored memories that are calling out to be activated. it's time. For the past 30,000 years, the Sophia source of all life was worshipped, but secretly in mystical lineage. After the fall of Atlantis, the Sophia lineages were shuttled out of Egypt to Tibet, India, over to France, eventually through Avalon over to the Americas. Atlantis fell because humanity started to choose and explore their free will choices of polarity, polarizing positive or polarizing negative. And that inherently became if you polarize positive, you were on the spiritual side. And if you polarize negative, you were in service to self and more oppressive in your life choices. And because of that, the balance shifted and the frequency was no longer such that Atlantis could be held up. And that's why I call it the fall of Atlantis. Atlantis was worldwide. It was not in one specific spot on a map. Research is showing that Atlantis was a time period, and what caused that time period to end was negative polarization, oppression, and patriarchal decisions that was being made in our culture. So in order to preserve and teach the Sophia lineages, it was done in secret mystery schools. Now, there's been some resurgence of mystery schools today, but then to go to a mystery school, to attend a mystery school, it was a people that had to have money or status, and it was something that was, it depended on where you were in the world, whether you had to hide it or not, but it was very, very respected. Joshua and Maggie, the Magdalene, were both raised in the priestess and priestesshood of Isis. And in that lineage, they learned the importance of exercise, and their exercise was yoga. They learned nutrition. Joshua was definitely a vegetarian. It is in many different scriptures that his disciples wrote in conjunction with their travels, that he did not want any animal used for food. So where there's been some edits of multiplying the fish and the bread, it wasn't fish and bread, it was grapes and bread whenever he fed the people. So anyway, these were just some things that they had learned throughout their training, their early training. And it also instructed them on Christ consciousness and the chakra system and Kundalini rising and lots and lots of awesome things. So as a person, an individual person, any person that participated in these schools were inherently a more positive, polarizing person because they were in service of others. And they were taught many things, and different people had different active gifts, and were able to. Some were healers, some were teachers, some were all of the above. So as a collective, then you had a ripple effect of Christ consciousness. And so you had an entire group of people that respected their place. They respected each other. They respected the human being, not only men getting respect and women being shamed or not having a place or not having the ability to have a title because of your gender. That really didn't exist until the patriarchal edicts and the patriarchal society and Christianity started to take hold and really be pushed out into the masses. So the Sophia Code, when you go through that text, you learn that we're all given a shared hidden blueprint of the Sophia lineages. It's a map in our DNA of all the lifetimes lived to prepare for this life. It's quite possible to have lived 1,000 incarnations in service of the light. And of the Sophia Code, over 30,000 years while humanity polarized, exploring spirituality and oppression, it really just depended on that Gnostic knowing, that inner knowing, and how strong it was, the character of a person, the support system that they had, on which direction they went in. There are people that were definitely born into difficult situations and still found their way to a very strong relationship with Christ and had a very high level of Christ consciousness. And so their frequency was very high in spite of some very daunting living conditions. So we are finally ready to receive the truth of our sovereignty, divinity, and to recall our true nature. The Golden Age of Miracles is here now. Now calls for living the Sophia Christ Consciousness as a sanctuary. Lay down your spiritual judgments, sacrifices, and weapons of another time so we can finally rest and reveal and celebrate our sovereignty in our true self and shared invincible nature. Now is the time to learn to shine with the light of Christ consciousness, free from all social conditioning, so we are seen for who we really are. We are one. So I say that because at the time of Maggie and Joshua walking earth, they were revered. They went from place to place, and Maggie was anointing followers and healing the sick. She actually activated Joshua. She was further along in her training and abilities, and their union ignited his activation of his abilities. But together, they are Christ consciousness. You don't have it with just one. Together, they teach us how we preserve a divine feminine and a divine masculine. And that together, that union is sacred. And together, that union is strength. And it definitely is a positive thing. And so I always, when I started to learn about this, and sometimes the tears that fell were because I couldn't help but think, at the time, there were people actively persecuting anyone who taught that position, that not only could women have positions of power in a spiritual setting, that they could be healers, that they could be teachers, that they could have a following in their own right, a following because of what they had accomplished on their own, and the honor that came with that. So knowing what we know now, the controllers had to distinguish between patriarchal or men that had power, that had the ability to heal, that had the ability to teach and have a following, from what the truth was. And that is, as Joshua and Maggie and their disciples traveled around and shared the word and taught yoga and taught the way to eat, when you honor life and you honor a soul and you honor humanity, that in reality, there were 70 or more women disciples, and Maggie was not only one of them, she was the most influential, she was the most esteemed and the most powerful. But there couldn't be any record of that. There couldn't be a following for her, because that put the position of the controllers at risk. You see, they couldn't have a part of a woman, any woman, feeling like if they had an out to do anything other than take their orders and have their place in the back of the room, that would mean that the controllers would not always be on a pedestal, would not always be in a position of power, would not always be able to shame and control and come out on top. And by way of that, that's how we ended up with edits to the Bible. That's how we ended up with books being burned. That's how we ended up with shaming and a patriarchal society where it didn't matter how much good someone did. If they were the wrong gender, it literally could get them killed. That is completely asinine. And I can't help but think where we would be today without that division starting thousands and thousands of years ago. Okay, division didn't start because of a contest. Division didn't start because of someone that is in office. Division didn't start because of something that came off of your TV or radio. Division started a very, very long time ago. And it was perpetuated by the people that had the power. They took power from those that they felt did not deserve it because it made the controllers look bad. So division started a long time ago, and it's just been splitting off in all these subcategories and subgroups. And there's always been a battle between good and evil. And as time has progressed and time has gone on, the divine feminine they've tried to completely erase it out of history totally. The divine masculine was a foreign concept. They completely threw that idea out the window. Like, there was shaming involved if any man actually had a conscience about what was happening to women in their community. And so those that did try to stand up for women's rights or the right for their wife or daughter or granddaughter to not be harmed or assaulted in the streets, taken against their will. All of that stemmed from the controllers at the time feeling threatened by women that all they were doing was showing anyone, men, women, animals, that respect for life and service to others was the way of Christ consciousness. And in doing so, elevated humanity, elevated our consciousness, elevated our frequency. It was a ripple effect, and it caused, oh my gosh, happiness, cohesion, a oneness. They couldn't have that. And so it's so sad. It's avoidable. That's the thing. I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm only 49. But I'm saying any one person couldn't stop it on their own. But people coming together as one, the one large group that believed in Christ consciousness, the one large group that was actually following to be in service of others instead of themselves, that was not out for themselves all the time, that really did care about humanity and wanted to live in a community where there was respect and love. That is what was needed. And that is what they had to dismantle so that the powers that be could keep winning. And everyone else were perpetual losers. And then they reinforced it with taking the book that everyone leaned on when they wanted guidance and support and love, and they edited out the things that would give them the things that would ignite their flame, that would give them an activation that activation that we're now coming back to as a people, because we are tired of the manipulation. We see through it now. As a world, we have a much, much larger following for the divine feminines that has come back very strong. Thank goodness. We now have teenagers who teach adults how to treat each other. Why do you think the teenagers are coming in and the 6 and 7 year olds and 8 year olds, and they're speaking wisdom compared to, I don't know, the 30s and 40s and 50 year olds? Why do you think that is? Well, it's because this higher frequency and this ascension started decades ago. It's been spreading slowly. It's been a very slow ascension process. We're at the end of it now, and most people have just become aware of it, and some people still don't know what's going on. But it doesn't mean just because you found out that's when it started. That's just when it started for you. It started a long time ago. But because of that, it does have this ripple effect. You know, this frequency out, it comes higher and higher and higher, and it is felt. It is palpable. When you live it, when you embody it, you can't hide it. You can't be like, oh, I'm going to dampen my, they want you to live in fear. They want you to live in a society where you're afraid to take action on your own. But in reality, that's our God-given right. And as soon as you tap into that, your power is right there, because it was there all along. You're just constantly being told that you don't have power. You can't make decisions on your own, and you have to follow what they say or else. But that's really not how it goes. That's just not how it goes. So the DNA is being upgraded. The more exposure that we get to these higher frequencies, there's a reception on our end in that DNA. That DNA has been waiting for that instigator, that activation to come through. So whether you are consciously out there doing these things that, some of us have a ritual now that we've learned better, we do better, right? But some people have no idea at all. But inherently, they're still good people. They're just ignorant to what's going on right now. So they're polarizing positive. Their DNA is being activated, and their consciousness is rising. And it's on a slower scale. It's not the same, whatever. But they're still being affected across the board. Everyone is having an effect in their DNA. It's all changing. Okay. We still have free will. That is, the law of one. The universe runs off of these laws. These are natural laws. We have the ability to exercise free will. When that is infringed upon, it doesn't matter what your city or county or state does about it. It matters, but, they're not the end all be all. The end all be all, in my opinion, is that source creator, the universe, you will have to answer to that. If you live your life keeping people from exercising their inalienable right of free will, then you are in service to yourself, not others, and you will have to answer for that. And it probably won't be a very good outcome. Just saying. The golden age of miracles is a cycle of time which quantum evolutionary leaps become accessible to large populations of humanity, seeking to embody the Sophia Christ Consciousness. When we talk about the Schumann Resonance again, it was discovered in 1954. And at the time, the frequency was 7.83 hertz. Okay. When I share out those images, I look to see the time on the like, when is the time of these higher frequencies? and the date. Sometimes those images are shared from across the world. So it's happened, that time didn't happen for us yet, but it's being shared because it's happened for them. So the increased frequency started being seen around the start of the ascension from 3D to 5D consciousness in 2014. The base frequency rose to 15 to 25 hertz, up from that 7.83. Then in 2017, it rose to more than 36 hertz. And lately, there's been peaks as high as 80 hertz. So think about that. Prior to 2014, the base was 7.83. So we'll just say 8. And now we're steadily 15 to 25 and peaking as much as 80. No wonder we feel it. No wonder we feel that frequency. You know, sometimes we're like, our dogs feel it. My dogs are like, I'm not moving off the couch. I'm so tired. They don't play. They don't want to eat. They're higher consciousness. Our pets are already 5D. They are already telepathically able to communicate, and they definitely feel these effects. And so it's natural that we would too, because the amounts are so great. There is fluctuations, but they definitely coordinate with our activations. The Schumann Resonance shows that the earth and all its forms inhabiting it are connected because it influences the biological circuitry of the brain, acting like a tuning fork. That's why you'll get the ringing in your ears and headaches and dizziness. So we are indistinguishably linked to the universe via our own magnetic fields, in turn influencing Earth's magnetic fields in our reality. Each one of us contribute positive or negative to the Earth's collective energy polarity. Now, it's not determined yet. I keep hearing it's very probable that we will polarize positive as a race, as a population on Earth. But it's not been decided yet. So the energetic frequency rise with the increased Christ consciousness increases our collective frequency, pushing on the planet to fourth density and our consciousness to either 4D dimension or fifth dimension. Pretty much if you're watching any of my videos, you're going to fifth dimension. I believe the second coming of Christ is not a single person or event, but the spread of the return of Sophia Christ Consciousness to humanity. Now, I'm quite certain that that statement will trigger someone. So I'm going to give my trigger disclaimer. If anything that I've said in this video triggers you, that is not about what I say. It's about an insecurity or a wound that you have deep inside. That is an indicator that you have some work to do, that you need to sit with yourself and figure out why that bothered you. What is it that you're upset about? And heal it and then move on. Because being triggered is just it means you have work to do. It has nothing to do with what I'm saying. So think about that though. If as a population of people, we are collectively learning and growing and embodying Christ consciousness, where we do think of each other respectfully. We do have care and concern for our fellow brothers and sisters, and all of humanity, our children, our pets, the environment, the water that runs through our towns, the forest, the bees. So if we as a humanity increase that level of Christ consciousness, that is Christ coming back in multiple people, multiple places, all at the same time. To me, in my opinion, that is how we save not only ourselves, but each other and this planet. Going forward, we have to change. We have to evolve. We have to elevate humanity. We have to be on the side of Christ consciousness to continue moving forward. If you polarize negative, if you are inherently all about yourself all the time, then you will not be on our timeline. That timeline is splitting. There's some people that have put information out over the weekend that that's happening now. And so people that are of a higher consciousness are going to be in the timelines together. They will no longer have people that are of lower consciousness and negative polarity in their timeline anymore. Now think about that. That could literally be everybody in your family. That's what they mean when they say the ending is not for everyone. So while we may love our family, while, I love my children to death, I don't know what will happen. I feel pretty strongly that one of them is very positive and will continue in my timeline. And actually, the other one's already been removed from my timeline because of negative events. So that's a pretty clear sign to me. That's how I see it. I don't have any control over that. We all have free will. We all have choices to make. We've always all had choices to make. We were told we didn't have choices for a while, but more and more of us are awake to the point that we know that our sovereignty is ours to take. It's ours to have. And if we gave it away, we have to take it back. And that doesn't mean, that just means a choice. That just means that you stand in your truth. You follow what your heart and your gut tells you to do. You don't try to make sense of it in your brain up here, because that's been manipulated for years. That's been, that has been what has led us down the path that got us to this point to begin with. Because when the masses get together and they put all their heads together, what do you think that means? That means that that one negative Nancy is gonna be the one driving the train downhill. We have to listen to our guts, and we have to listen to our hearts. They can't be manipulated. They know the truth when they hear it. That is my opinion. Again, my opinion. Today was a more lighthearted talk, although I'm sure I touched on a few things that may or may not trigger you. Mainly my information came from the Sophia Code and the evolution that I have personally undergone. And then, Schumann Resonance, if you want to look up anything about that, there's a bunch of different Telegram channels, and you can just look at it generally on Google or DuckDuckGo to kind of get the gist of what the Schumann Resonance means. But I will link the Sophia Code book in the description box. It's a great book. I'm going to also link Esoteric Atlanta's YouTube channel, that's Brice's channel, in the description box, because she has playlists that she's done several books that enlightened me and kind of brought me to this point. So I definitely want to give her the credit there. But anyway, that's it. I hope you guys have a great weekend and a good week coming. And just remember that the best is yet to come. And if we work together and remember that we are one, we heal our nation, we heal ourselves, we heal our planet, and we will all enjoy the second coming of Christ. You guys have a great day.